All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are going to be breaking down our top 10 edge rushers in the 2022 NFL Draft. This is honestly a pretty deep edge rushing class, Nick, when you look deep into the gritty of everything we got going on. This is a pretty interesting class, group of edge rushers.
I actually love this class. I think this is really interesting. I think it's one of the deeper positions in the draft this year. A lot of really talented guys in this class that even get outside of this top 10 that we put together. I'm really excited to see where they fall. It seems like edge rusher is an in-demand position in the NFL right now, and there's a lot of guys that could fit some holes in team and be like impact starters on day one.
Yeah, I think the depth is pretty good. At first glance, it wasn't great. And when you gave it a few other looks, I was actually pretty impressed. I think we have some great guys. I think you could see potentially 12 of them. I think when we did our mock draft, we had like double figures within the first 64 picks. Edge rusher, is one of the top positions in the league. So if there's an abundance of them to draft, they certainly will be selected early and often. So kicking things off at number 10, Cam Thomas, the Mountain West Player of the Year on defense. Great set of pass rush moves really stand out from Cam Thomas. The spin move especially, I really like what he brings to the table in that area. 6'5", 270, high motor for Cam Thomas. What stands out about the San Diego State Aztec?
Yeah, he was really dominant for the defensive side of the ball for the Aztecs this year. They had a really good year. I like his motor. He's very fast, like you said. He's he's unblockable on single blocks. He can get around there. Very talented player. He's suited for a 4-3, I'd say, something like that. But very talented. Could be a really good defensive end for a team, and take him late in the second round, maybe a little bit towards the front end of the second round. He has really good instincts on pass rush, and can play really good on that side. And I really liked what he did for San Diego State this year. I thought he was very talented for them.
Yeah, it was a great defense from San Diego State. That entire front seven, these guys were so good at slowing down the run. Cam Thomas, he kind of broke in. I think it was Mel Kiper's, one of his mocks early in the year. He broke into the first round. It's possible a team like the Chiefs, the Bucks, maybe they don't really have a big need. The Bills even could reach for a guy like Thomas. It's totally plausible where, teams like that don't have any great gaping need, really, they could reach. So I think Thomas could certainly crack the first round, which is crazy to say considering he's at number 10 on our list. So Cam Thomas, I think his biggest negatives, though, he kind of lacks great speed. That high motor we talk about kind of taps him out at times. You'll see in the fourth quarter he gets tired, not able to use the ultimate set of pass rush moves he has. NFL, he won't have to worry about that, I don't think, right off the bat. He won't have to be a three-down player. Chance to get more conditioned, along with the versatility and upper body strength he has. I think all the skill set he provides. Thomas is a high upside player. I think if he can work on some of those negatives, though, he'll fit right in somewhere. I think early on, a great defensive coordinator will find a way to get him involved.
Yeah, I think like you said, a couple of those teams later in the first round that don't have any like glaring needs. I look at Buffalo, I look at Kansas City, those type of teams. They could reach for a guy like him, kind of let him take it slow for the first 2 years, be first, second down guy, sit out third down, and really get him comfortable in the NFL, and they could get a really talented player out of that. He gets a little tired towards the end of the game, but if he's only playing first, second down, he can be really effective and can add a lot to a team.
I'm thinking of him maybe more as a second and third down player more than first and second. I think that's really where he'd fit early on. Moving to number 9, though, Maja Sanders. This is a guy, of course, I went to high school with. It's pretty insane. From Friday Night Lights to the NFL, he'll certainly be drafted within these first 2 or 3 rounds. What he stands out with most is his great energy, the Energizer Bunny for that Cincinnati Bearcat defense. Great length. I like what he brings to the table in that area. Fast get off. It really gets him in trouble sometimes, though. We had 2 or 3 offsides penalties against Alabama. He's just a feisty guy, ready to get after it. You like that in your player with some added discipline. That's certainly going to be a big-time asset to his game. Great hustle, variety of moves. Top to bottom, Maja Sanders. Of course, he's my favorite player in the draft. A little biased on that. But how do you feel about Sanders from the Bearcats heading into 2022?
So I do worry about his a little bit of tendency to jump off sides. He had some problems against Georgia in the bowl game against them in 2021. And I'm a little concerned about the weight too. There's some reports that his weight may not be at the listed 255, it may be a little bit lower. But in general, I think he has explosive first step and can really jump the snap, get after the quarterback, get some good plays. And I like some of his speed, but I am concerned with the penalties. The problem against Alabama, like you said in the playoff, had three or four offsides, which is not really what you want to see. But he was a two-sport athlete in high school. Very talented, kind of rising up some draft boards late on in this or right now in this draft era. I think He'd be a good pick for some teams. A little questionable, but he would be probably good in a 4-3, maybe weak side end. I like what I see from him, and I think he'd be a good player.
Yeah, of course, the size you said, that's not really a big concern for me. You go into the NFL when you see guys that have questionable size, but they have the good stature, the good mold, and they just got to get into a nice workout routine. That, along with strength, that's another one of his concerns. Doesn't really bother me very well, as not being a great tackler or not playing the run very well does. Strength will get there, the size will get there. When you're not balancing school and football, when you have full-time focus on that, that'll get taken care of, at least for most guys. Most guys that are hard workers. Maja is certainly a hard worker. I think he'll be a great player. Another guy who's really good, should go within the first 2 rounds at number 9. Pretty crazy how stacked I feel like this class is. Moving to number 8, though, Kingsley Ingbar. Early in the draft process this past fall, I seen him top 10, top 15 in some mocks. He plays pretty tall. It's one of his deficiencies, but he's got some pretty violent hands. The agility possesses allows him to drop back in the coverage. And he's also got a nice burst off the edge. He's one of the more impressive, versatile prospects, I think, in this edge rushing class. He's not superb off the edge, I guess you could say. He's not spectacular, but the versatility, along with that quickness and burst I talked about, makes him a very desirable prospect.
Yeah, so he started playing as a true freshman at South Carolina, and then kind of developed into a full-time starter for the last 2 years. I am a little worried about his football IQ. There were some times in the tape that I watched I was a little concerned with that. He could definitely use some room for improvement on picking up plays. He had a poor game against Clemson, which is the one of the tapes that I watched. I was a little concerned about that, but he could be a really good hybrid edge for a team. He can really get off fast. Make some good plays on the defensive side of the ball. And I like that he started for 2 years. Started playing as a freshman, then got 2 strong years as a starter. Really picked up some good game time, and he's fallen a little bit, like you said, in a couple mock drafts. But I think someone could get really good player here if they're careful with it and it fits a need.
Yeah, another one of those kind of project players. Got a few of those in this class that are edge rush project guys. It's usually a pretty good thing. I like those guys. They're raw talents that you can really elevate. Number 7, Arnold Mckinney. I wouldn't say he's one of those raw talents. I'd say he's one of the more blossomers late here in the process. Had a good Senior Bowl, great year at Penn State. He came over from Temple, where he was very impressive for the Owls. What really stands out about him, you could be a casual football fan, you'll notice his length, the bend, the balance he has off the edge. It's just beautiful. It's phenomenal. The pursuit he has. As a pure pass rusher, Ebiketie really checks the boxes. He'll over pursue at times. I like what he does as an interior rusher, though. The initial burst he possesses, it isn't great. The first move, sometimes if it doesn't work, he'll get stood up. He just kind of gives up on the play. He's kind of withdrew from the action if that first play, that first move and that first burst isn't there. So that's a bit of a concern. And sometimes he'll take some wild angles against the run, but a lot of guys do that, being young players that love to pursue. So that's not too big of a concern as getting stood up is. So how do you feel about Ebiketie?
So I actually like his versatility. That's something that I noticed at Penn State. They kind of moved him around a few times this year. Like you said, he did a good Senior Bowl. I definitely get a little concerned. He is, again, football IQ. I'm a little concerned with that. I think he's going to have to take a couple years to get kind of comfortable with the team, kind of understand how they play on defense, kind of get used to that. He is a bit wild with the rushing and the penetration, kind of just goes on his own and doesn't really get back into position. But in general, I think he's a talented player. I like the time he had at Temple and then going to Penn State this year and kind of just perfecting what was a pretty good player at Temple and kind of just blossoming at Penn State, getting into that good, comfortable Big Ten play, playing against some better talent while playing at Penn State. And I think he is a very good player. I think there's some opportunity here, 6'4", 250, kind of where you want to be with an edge rusher. And I think his speed is pretty good. And he could be, sort of a pass rush specialist for his rookie season and kind of develop throughout the next couple of years and develop into something really strong.
You've seen what Brent Pry did with Micah Parsons. Granted, he was a high-end 5-star recruit, but also Gross Matos. He was a second-round pick to the Panthers, I believe. Ebiketie's next in line. Brent Pry has done great work with his linebackers/edge rushers at Penn State. Now he's off the VT, of course, but I like the background he comes from, like the season he just had, and so far this year and the camps and whatnot. He's done pretty good. Interested to see how he tests at the combine. Moving to number 6, though, Drake Jackson. This is a guy who's got some really good speed. I think he can dip pretty well. He can drop into coverage. I think he's more of a hybrid guy than just a pure pass rusher. He does have some pretty good moves, though. I like the versatility he has. He doesn't really play the run very well, but nobody on the USC defense played it very well. So I think Drake Jackson, though, as a versatile playmaker. He really can provide as a big asset. And he's another one of those guys early in the draft process that people consider to be a top 5, top 10 pick. He's kind of fallen out a little bit. But that's always a good sign, though, when scouts are early on very high on you. It's not necessarily a bad thing if you drop, because that means they mostly can see the potential you bring to the table. And Jackson is another one of those examples.
Yeah, I like his flexibility and his first step explosiveness. He really has that strong first step off the snap. Can really, and definitely in obvious passing situations, he can do really well in that. I think he has strong hands as well in both, and also pretty decent. He's really good against the pass, but I'm concerned about defending the run. But like you said, there was a lot of problems with USC defending the run this year, so I'm not going to totally pin that on him. But I think he would be a really good edge rusher, probably fit a 3-4 scheme wherever he ends up. I like his football IQ. I think he's a very intelligent player on the field, 6'4", 250, kind of right where you want to be if you're an edge rusher. So I think this is a solid player. And like you said, he was in the top 5 earlier on. He's kind of fallen a little bit. He fell down to 6 in our edge rushers, but even 6 in the edge rushing list here, that still could be a first-round pick considering how high some of these guys that are ahead of him are going to go. So I think that he could be a late first-round pick and get really good value at a team like maybe Kansas City.
Yeah, the angles the USC defenders took against the run this past year was just phenomenal. So I'll just say that. But number 5, George Karlaftis out of Purdue, 5-star recruit. He's from West Lafayette, so he played high school about 10 miles from Purdue. So he opted to stay home. I believe his brother is now playing there as a linebacker too. So he decided to stay home, had a pretty good career with Purdue. He was one of the top players in the Big Ten, very underrated, playing for the Boilermakers, of course. What stands about him is he's got an incredibly high motor. He's an every down player. Unlike Cam Thomas, he doesn't gas out. That's one thing you really notice. Hard worker. Of course, most of these edge rushers need some run defense work. That's one of his areas of concern. Needs to play with some more leverage, I think. But overall, I think he's an elite athlete. Love how he gives 100% on every single play. Fights to get into the backfield. Not too many negatives in Karlafitz's corner. I think a lot of people are kind of underrating him because he played at Purdue. That's a stacked conference with all kinds of talent everywhere. But I think he will certainly shine. I don't know if he's worth the top 10 hype or selections in the mocks I'm seeing, but I think it could really pan out for a team like the Giants.
Yeah, he was a breakout freshman in 2019, and he has, even though he is 6'4", 275, he's playing every down, like you said, and really is explosive on every single down. He doesn't seem to tire, which is really impressive. And I actually think it's respectful that he stayed home and played at Purdue. And he had a really good time there over the last couple of seasons. Like I said, he was a freshman All-American, very solid in that 2019 season. And it's hard to find a downside with this player. But I just think that putting him in the top 10 might be a bit of a reach. He could fit well with the Giants. Actually, as a Giants fan, I would like that pick. But I think that he more fits in that sort of 17 to 25 range for me if he was fall down there. I'm a little concerned about what am I concerned about? I guess in general, I don't have as many concerns as I thought I did. Very talented player, and he had a good time at Purdue, and I think that he'd be a very good player for whatever team picks him up. Very good in a 4-3 and can play every down, like you said, which is something that a lot of teams would like to have.
Yeah, we have him at 5, which I think 3 through 5 are pretty debatable. So he could be as high as 3. But we have him at 5, and mock drafts have him at 10. So it's pretty. When you're 5th in your own position, you're going top 10 in the mock draft. I don't know. Personal opinion, of course, but I don't think I'd be upset if he went top 10 if my team's it. One bit. Number 4, David Ajabo. This guy has most people probably foaming from the mouth. Limited in experience. I believe Kwity Paye as well. Remember, he went first round to the Colts last year. He was incredibly limited in experience, and a lot of people expect great things from him. Ajabo's the same thing. I'm pretty sure this past season was his first full season playing college football or any football at all. I could be wrong, but regardless, limited in experience. That didn't seem to matter. He had double-figure sacks. Of course, Aiden Hutchinson was on the other side, so he wasn't seeing team's best tackles, but great burst. The get-off is just phenomenal. He gets around the edge in a hurry. He uses that length to perfection. He wraps up surprisingly well for the limited experience. Of course, another guy who's inconsistent against the run. But when you want to talk about raw talent, Ajabo fits the bill. I've seen him go top 10 in mock drafts too. I think a team like the Ravens, it would be a match made in heaven for Ajabo to go there. How do you feel about this product from Michigan?
So Ajabo's been kind of climbing up boards for me recently. He was a high school track athlete. He was a very strong, very good athlete in high school. And I think he has the highest ceiling of anyone on this list outside of the player we'll have at number 1 we'll get to later. I think he could be really talented if a team picks him up. Like you said, he was playing on the other side of Hutchinson. So obviously there's going to be He's had to fight Hutchinson for sacks, but he still got double digits, which is really impressive in that what was a strong Michigan defense this year. I liked a lot of his speed. I liked his versatility. He's a pure athlete. He's a lot of untapped potential in that department, and could be a really diverse defensive weapon for whatever team picks him up. There is some concerns with the football IQ just because he hasn't played a whole lot, but that will surely be worked on over time. That's kind of more of a time thing. He has a very, very strong motor, and I think he'd be really good on a run defense and a pass defense for whatever team picks him up, and he could be a top 10 pick, and you wouldn't go wrong there.
Yeah, I think getting him behind some experienced veterans, that's why I brought up the Ravens with, guys like Justin Houston, Calais Campbell. I don't know how free agency is going to go and all that. I don't even know if they'll be on the roster, but if they are, that'd be a perfect pickup with some veterans to teach him some ways. Ajabo, very interesting prospect. Moving to number 3, me and you, we both love this guy, Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. We both honestly probably would have put him number 1, but the guys ahead of him are just too good to not put them there. So Jermaine Johnson, though, we love this guy. It's laughable how good he is. You can just watch him play. When I was at the Senior Bowl, he just knows he's the best player on the field, and there's nobody that's going to stop him. He plays with so much confidence. Underrated confidence, too. And what I mean by that is a lot of people don't really know who he is. He doesn't care. He's going to show you who he is. Long arms, big frame. It's kind of thin a bit. He's got some limited strength. But you don't really notice that in his game. He's got great explosion, good moves, high energy player, pretty violent hands, I'd say. When I was at the Senior Bowl, we put Darian Kennard on his back in one-on-ones. This guy is just phenomenal. Everything about him really as a prospect stands out. I wouldn't even be shocked if he made his way into the top 10 here come late April. Jermaine Johnson, we love him. I just told you why I love him. Why do you love him?
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson is my favorite player in this draft overall. I absolutely love him. His Senior Bowl just basically put the stamp on the paper for me because I really was impressed with him at Florida State. He was the best player on that Florida State team this year, and it was extremely noticeable. You could just tell that this guy was out there absolutely talented. A former JUCO player who played at Georgia as well. If he can fit any scheme, he has that flexibility to play anywhere, and he has that relentless power. He will go all game without showing any sort of a stop. And he is very, very, very quick off the ball, and he is really a really relentless player. He doesn't want to give up. He has a great football IQ, and like I said, JUCO plus Georgia has great experience. If this guy goes top 10 to, let's say, the Giants at 7, I think that would be a great pick for the Giants. He is going to continue to rise up draft boards. He was towards the bottom of the first half of the first round in the fall, and now he's moving up to that 14-15 range. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to 7-8. I think he's a really talented player, and honestly, from here with the combine coming up, I think his stock is only going to rise. He is my favorite player in this draft, and if it wasn't for the fact that the two guys in front of him are just really, really, really talented, this guy would be the first in the edge rushers for me. And any other year, he'd probably be the first edge rusher, but just when you have Hutchinson and Thibodeau in front of him, that's going to be a little bit tough to beat those guys out. Very talented, high football IQ, relentless player. Whoever gets him is going to get a talented player for years to come.
Yeah, he was probably the most quiet first-team All-American ever because Florida State, obviously, nobody ever watched him play. But he first-team All-American. He had almost 20 tackles for loss or something in that nature. He was just a stud all year long. I think a 4.5, 4.6 40 would probably really blow the door open for a potential top 5 selection. Aiden Hutchinson is number 2. It's obviously a toss-up between him and KT for the top 2 spots. It's honestly really a tie. Hutchinson, though, at number 2, natural pass rusher, violent hands. I talked about that with Johnson and some of these other guys, but he really displays great hand placement, quick, get off the edge. He needs to add some more moves. He got against Georgia. He was a non-factor, really. But against Ohio State, he was bodying guys. He was pushing them all around, displaying how good he is with those hands. There's one clip that kept circulating everywhere where he put one of the top tackles in college football on his back. He just blew him backwards. That's what he can provide for you. I'd say he's a 3-down player. Overall, I think this is a pretty complete prospect. Not too many negatives, a lot of positives. I don't see how Hutchinson doesn't end up playing, at least 8 years in the league as a solid player, potentially the next, Von Miller type elite pass rusher.
Yeah, I think he's a plug-and-play player. The Heisman finalist, very talented. Out of the tapes I looked at, a lot of good games, but like you said, the Georgia game kind of concerned me, and the game against Alabama in 2019 also concerned me a little bit, but those hands are just absolutely impressive. The way that he can just throw offensive tackles to the ground like it's nothing is incredible. He has a relentless motor. He will play every single down of the game and put a lot of pressure. He had a ton of sacks from Michigan this year. There's a reason he was a Heisman finalist. Very talented player. yes, the Georgia game leaves a little bit concerned, but I think this guy has 10 years in him in the NFL. Like I said, plug and play. Any team that picks him can throw him right into that defense, and he can start to be really talented for them. Primarily a pass rusher, every down defensive end, but wherever you put him, he's going to be good.
Yeah, that moves us to number 1. Speaking of relentless edge rushers, I went with Kevin Thibodeau at number 1. You just watch his tape last year against USC. Single-handedly won that game. He was the MVP of that Pac-12 title game, making plays against the run on the interior, making plays off the edge as a pass rusher. It was impressive. Obviously, he didn't play much this past season due to injury. He was kind of inconsistent a bit. But the UCLA tape really stands out where they could not block him one bit. He had 4.5 sacks every single play after play. He was in the face of whoever was throwing the football. Very strong hands. I just harped on how he collapses as a run defender very well. He has insane length. The get off isn't great, but he's still incredibly relentless. That's where he makes up for it. If he can get a little better explosion, I think the former number 1 ranked recruit is certainly going to have a very, very good career at the next level. I love KT all around as a prospect. Obviously, his character has some concerns. Todd McShay said that he might fall in the draft a bit. Of course, he said some things about the Alabama education that probably weren't great. I wouldn't really call that a character concern. That's his personal opinion. But overall, I think KT, he's going to have a pretty good career. Seems like a very good young man, great football player in the process as well.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you that the character concerns are not as big as a problem for me as some other people. The former number 1 player in high school recruiting, he is all Pac-12, and then, like you said, he won the Pac-12 championship game MVP. Has that really good burst. He's going to be a starting edge rusher wherever he ends up. I like his explosive first step. I think he's very talented. He's very flexible on the edge, can play wherever you need him to play. He's got good hands, good hips, very talented, very good against the run, which is what you want to see in an edge rusher. I like that as well. He plays with excellent strength. He has very good football IQ. I think he studies the game well. He knows what he's doing. Of course, the injuries are a concern this year. Of course, he missed a lot of game time. But I think if you take good care of him, whoever drafts him, he can blossom to a really talented player for years to come.
And unfortunately, we didn't get to see him play against Ohio State due to an injury. I just said his get off wasn't great. You just said you love his first step, which I agree with that. Just his get off is not always consistent, but in some of those games, it really is, like the UCLA game. This guy, I don't know how his motor is pretty impressive too. Like if you go back and watch that tape, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but every single play he was in someone's face. And when he's fully healthy, he's ready to go. And he's amped up. He can really provide that for you. That's what I love about him. Is the relentlessness off the edge.
I think the get off is a little bit of a concern, but he is explosive when he's attacking the ball, and I think that he can work on that once he gets to the NFL for sure.
Yep, great edge rushing class. It'll be interesting to see where these guys go. It's probably the best class we've seen in a while. I think we could really see about half the top 5 potentially go in the top 10, depending on what happens, of course. That's going to be it for today. Nick, appreciate you joining me as always.
Yeah, thank you.
Make sure you guys comment who you think's the best edge rusher in this class and where you think they'll probably go. Make sure you subscribe as well for more content. That'll be it. See you guys.